The story begins with Jin fighting a dragon, which is his routine as a hunter. After he manages to defeat it, he looks at the time and decides to complete one more quest before heading back. Later at the Hunters Guild, he asks the receptionist to do her thing, which comes as a surprise to her as he just took all those jobs in the morning. Jin lets her know that he's already done with them all, and after noticing all the ingredients, she mentions that this sort of thing takes over a week. However, Jin mentions that this is how long he usually takes, causing her to compliment Jin for doing a good job. Additionally, she lets him know that he has completed all the requests that were sent in for him, which comes as a relief to him, as he can now finally rest for the first time in months. When the receptionist asks about his plans, Jin lets her know that he'll just spend time with his family somewhere. Apparently, hunters in this world are jacks of all trades, as they are expected to take on requests for collection, extermination, and subjugation. The demand is so high that Jin keeps getting an endless stream of commissions. Even though he has the choice of refusing, people have to pay a high fee just to ask him for help, so he doesn't want to leave them hanging. One more reason that he works so hard is that he needs the bread to support his family, as he has two monstrous gluttons at home. After reaching home, Jin makes sure to keep quiet and puts the money in the closet where he's saving it for retirement. Furthermore, he starts feeling bad for the girls but decides to go outside and have the day to himself. Later, he reaches the perfect spot, just under a cherry blossom tree, and grills some high-grade meat. Before long, he enjoys every single bite of it along with some dragon spike steak and comments on how this is what life should be like. With that being said, Jin decides to devour some rice balls as well, but fails to hold it in his hands due to how hot it is and ends up dropping it. The rice ball rolls down the hill and Jin runs after it like there's no tomorrow. Knowing that he's all in the mood for a bite of that rice ball, he decides not to pass on this chance. In the end, he manages to grab the rice ball, only to notice a deep pit right below him. As expected, Jin falls down the hole, ultimately losing his consciousness. Soon after, he finds himself on the ground, wondering where he is, and after taking a look around, he realizes that all the plants and this landscape look unfamiliar. Although he's been a hunter since his early life, Jin has never seen something like this. But as a hunter, he's used to unforeseen circumstances and decides to first find a source of water and then to look for a way home. Luckily, he also seems to have a return scroll which will take him back home in a flash, but as these things are pretty expensive, he wants to find a better option before using this. While making his way through the forest, Jin hears the sound of a sleeping monster, and it turns out to be a type of dragon he has never seen before. Knowing that it's a rare dragon he has never even seen in a book, Jin decides not to disturb it while it's sleeping. Just then, he hears someone shouting and sees an awfully thick elf being followed by two freaky losers. Jin notices that she seems to be coming this way and tries stopping her, letting the elf know that there's a dragon nest nearby. The elf, with tears in her eyes, tells Jin that the humans ambushed her, but before Jin can even say something, one of them puts a sack on her and comments on how much of a hard time she gave them. However, when Jin tries to stop them, one of them questions if he wants to stand up for an elf and whether he wants to pick a fight with a soldier from Redonia army. But Jin replies, asking them to calm down as they shouldn't be making any noise, but he seems to be pretty late as the dragon is already awake. Both the soldiers soil their pants and run away, not wanting to get eaten. This annoys Jin as they leave after waking up the dragon and tries to go for his sword, only to realize he left it back home. Suddenly, the dragon starts dashing towards the elf, and having no other choice, Jin stabs it with the knife he has and cuts the dragon from top to bottom, ultimately defeating it. Following that, Jin is relieved that the dragon had some weak spots along with the fact that the elf girl seems to be okay. He then frees her, and just as she is about to thank him, the sight of a man covered in blood causes her to faint. Sometime later, Eri apologizes for losing her cool as she never expected a human to help him. Jin also begins to wonder what kind of soldiers harass people like that, and can't understand why he's at a place where elves are getting attacked by humans. While the dragon meat is being prepared, Jin asks Eri about her wounds, saying that he only had a low potion to give to her. Eri realizes that they don't hurt anymore and wonders if this is healing magic. She then begins to panic and asks if someone discovered a way to use one of the lost arts, the healing magic. But Jin disagrees and tells Eri that it's just a low-ranked potion that is sold at every store. But to his surprise, this is the first time Eri has seen a potion, while Jin begins to wonder if this world believes in fairy tale nonsense like magic. Eventually, he decides to do some exploring after getting Eri to safety and notices that the meat looks ready and tells Eri to dig in. But before she can even refuse, Jin takes a bite and comments that the umami flavor fills his mouth with every bite and calls it a good catch. Furthermore, he asks Eri if she doesn't like meat, to which she replies that this meat looks pretty expensive, only to be told that it's the meat of the dragon he just eliminated. Hearing this freaks her out, and Jin elaborates that she missed it because she was in a bag. He also mentions that there is more meat he can carry and tells her to have some if she wants. However, Eri gets excited knowing that monsters still live in this forest and tells Jin that she won't be eating it and instead wants him to sell some of it for her village. With a waterfall running down her face, Eri tells Jin that her village is having a lot of trouble with food, causing him to stop and realize that he has been devouring the food himself in front of a starving hot chick. Following that, Eri thanks Jin for giving her some of the meat and wonders if he's sure that he doesn't want anything in return, to which Jin agrees, saying that he will be leaving soon anyway. Additionally, he'd rather have her enjoy the food than eat it all alone. Jin then asks Eri about the forest, as even though it's so bountiful, they haven't run into a single monster. Eri replies by letting him know that there were once many animals until a huge dragon showed up and ate them all. Apparently, it was one of the largest dragons called Zerdodon, which has a red body, massive fangs and scales tougher than iron. Redonia sent waves of warriors to defeat the dragon, but they stood no chance and left the forest alone. As the animals were gone, the village was left without food, and now the kingdom is forcing them to buy scraps from them at an absurd price. Hearing this reminds Jin that the dragon he slayed was also red, wondering if it was a baby. Eri freaks out thinking about the fact that Zerdodon might be popping babies. Meanwhile, Jin figures that fighting a large dragon with his current equipment would be really challenging, and while he still has the potions and return scroll, he doesn't plan on wasting such expensive items on something so ridiculous. Eventually, the two of them arrive at Eri's village, but before that, Eri told Jin that even though she knows that he's an incredibly kind person, the others are going to be scared seeing him, which is why she forcefully covers Jin's head in order to hide his ears. While he thinks that this precaution must be because of the elves always getting oppressed, the two of them finally arrive at the village chief's house. But to their surprise, an old granny runs out, telling Eri to head to her house as her mother has collapsed. Jin tells Eri not to worry about him and quickly go. With that being said, the two of them run to Eri's house, where they find the village chief, who informs Eri that her mother's condition has suddenly deteriorated. Apparently, someone found her collapsed in front of the door, and she hasn't gotten much better since. This causes Eri to apologize for leaving her alone, reassuring her mother that she managed to get them some meat, and that she'll surely get better after eating some. Hearing this statement makes the chief question what Eri means and who exactly is the musclehead she brought along. Eri introduces Jin, telling her that he had a lot of meat and decided to share some with her. She further says that there's still more in the forest and they'll need a cart to bring it to the village. Still concerned, the village chief asks Jin how much he wants to sell it for, to which he replies that he doesn't need anything in return as he isn't a merchant but a hunter. But to his surprise, the chief doesn't seem to know what a hunter is, causing Jin to wonder where in the world he is. Nonetheless, the village chief, Lily, thanks Jin for saving Eri's life and even giving them food, and gets told by Jin not to worry about it. Lily further mentions that she's really glad that Eri made it back in time safely, and thanks Jin once again for making it possible. When Jin questions what she means by returning in time, Lily replies that the doctor said her mother doesn't have much time left, and when Jin asks if the sickness is really that bad, Lily lets him know that they tried herbal treatment, but it had little effect, and according to the doctor, this sickness is caused by lack of animal nutrients. Currently, all they have is expensive dried meat from Redonia. This makes Jin realize how grave the situation is, and he's aware that some dragon meat won't be making much of a difference. Eri then informs Lily that the reason she got help today is because the kingdom's soldiers were offering a deal that could help the village with their debt. When Lily asks about the kind of deal it was, Eri replies that in exchange for a young elf rocking their bed, the soldiers promised to reduce the interest. As she couldn't make the decision alone, Eri decided to consult Lily, but as soon as she told this to the soldiers, they tried kidnapping her. Hearing this statement even wakes her sick mother, who advises Eri to never get involved with the humans. However, this only makes her condition even worse, and Lily runs out to call the doctor. Jin realizes that her internal bleeding can't be fixed with meat, and she requires urgent treatment. He instantly opens his potion kit and ultimately decides to use an elixir, as anything else won't work. Following that, he asks Eri to step aside and makes her mother drink that elixir, which luckily ends up making her condition much better, allowing her to sleep peacefully. While Jin figures that this should be enough, Lily comes back running, asking about the situation. Jin lets her know that he gave her an elixir that can heal any wound or illness as long as the person is still alive. This makes Lily wonder if this is some legendary healing magic, to which Jin replies that Eri asked him the same thing, and says that it's not magic but a medicine anyone can use. After that, he decides to take a leak, but before he goes, Eri calls out his name, thanking him with tears in her eyes. However, as soon as he shuts the door, Jin begins thinking how an elixir is something anyone can use, but it still comes at a huge cost. He then begins to regret using it, as it cost a whole year of earnings to buy one of these. Apparently, it can only be produced in tiny amounts by the most skilled alchemists. However, if he had used one of the low-grade potions, there's a good chance that she would have suffered until the end, which makes him believe that he did a good thing and that he shouldn't let something like this haunt him. Jin further thinks that he might run into the dragon if he goes back to the forest, and without his sword or elixir, he isn't really confident. But if he uses his return scroll, he can probably still get home and won't see this place ever again. With that being said, he informs the girls that it's time for him to leave. Additionally, he decides to leave the rest of his potions with them, advising them not to let things get as bad as with Eri's mother, as they are not as strong as the elixir. But before that, he wants them to eat meat and get better. When Eri argues that he might need the medicine for his trip home, Jin informs her that he has a way to get back immediately. Suddenly, they hear commotion outside, and after taking a look through the window, Lily notices the soldiers saying that they have come to relay a message from the king. Jin recognizes him as the guy who was chasing Eri and thinks how he's acting tough for someone who ran like a little coward. That soldier then reminds the elves that the repayment deadline is tomorrow, and that they'll be expecting 50,000 gold coins. Jin freaks out after hearing the debt amount and gets told by Lily that this is exactly right. While Jin figures that he can buy 3 elixirs with that amount, Lily mentions that they had to take loans as they couldn't afford what they were selling, but the interest rates are ridiculous. Even though Jin feels sorry for them, he can't do much as a stranger and believes that even the meat and potions won't help that much. Meanwhile, the soldier further adds that if they don't have that much money right now, the kingdom is willing to postpone the deadline if they agree to be their slaves. 1 slave equals 1 day. All the elves are shocked to hear this, and Lily realizes that it's the same offer they made to Eri. Having no other choice, Eri decides to go if they keep their end of the bargain. But Lily instantly refuses, saying that her mother doesn't want her to go, and adds that nothing good will come of going along with the humans' demands. Apparently, it has been this way for decades since Lily's father was the chief, and Redonia's oppression is something that won't end so easily. At the same time, Jin begins thinking and figures that he might be able to take those soldiers with him if he uses his return scroll. But Lily mentions that it won't work, as they'll just send even more men next time. Furthermore, she says that she'll handle the humans herself and thanks him for the meat and medicine. Afterward, Lily asks Eri to take Jin outside through the back entrance, and while walking away, he asks Lily and Eri's mother to stay safe. After arriving back in the forest, Eri takes off the hood Jin was wearing and tells him to come back if he ever needs something. With that being said, she says her goodbyes, and after advising Eri to stay strong, he disappears out of her sight using the return scroll. Before long, he returns to his original world, only to find himself standing on the cliff, about to fall again. Following that, he looks at the hole and thinks how it contains unknown plants, monsters and elves that have never heard of hunters. However, he also believes that there's no reason for him to go back, and he did everything he could. With that being said, he returns home and gets greeted by a little girl who lets him know that she's hungry, asking Jin to make some food. Just then, another girl sits on top of the first one, letting her know that she's bothering Jin. Apparently, they might look like little girls, but they are actually legendary monsters named Slirin the Slime and Ryu the Dragon. For some reason, they became attached to him and started living at his house. Afterward, Ryu tells Slirin to get off Jin, to which she replies that she's not that heavy, only to notice Jin struggling to breathe as Slirin's real body is quite massive. In reply, Slirin mocks Ryu for not being able to hide her wings, causing her to get furious. Luckily, Jin breaks the fight by telling Slirin that she's not heavy and complimenting Ryu's wings. Soon after, he makes food for the two of them and thinks that having food with the two of them like a family after coming home from a hard day at work is the sort of life he has been given. While he's lost in thought, both Slirin and Ryu manage to steal some food from his plate, and after seeing it empty, he figures that he has eaten everything and goes to do the dishes. Later that night, Slirin comes up to Jin, saying that he's acting weird, and Ryu adds that he didn't drink any booze, which means that something is troubling him. Slirin also mentions that he's spacing out a lot, and while his body is here, his mind seems to be somewhere else. While Jin thinks about how the elf's problem is something he shouldn't get involved in, Slirin advises him to do what he thinks is right, and Ryu figures that he's worried because he left something unfinished. This helps Jin make up his mind, and he walks away, promising to eat no meals until he's done everything in his power. Afterward, he heads to the storehouse, and knowing that he might have to fight the dragon, he restocks the potion, the elixir, and his trusty sword as well. After he's all geared up, Jin once again jumps down the hole, deciding to do whatever he can. Luckily, Jin ends up in the elves' forest again and asks everyone to wait for his return. On the other hand, Lily offers all the money she has to the soldiers, but they are still unsatisfied and ask Lily if she's taking the kingdom's soldiers for fools. However, Lily apologizes, saying that this is all the villagers have, asking them to have mercy on them. Suddenly, everyone hears a human asking them to let him through, and that human turns out to be Jin, who puts the bags of gold in front of the soldiers, letting them know that it's 50,000 gold coins just like they asked. Both Eri and the mustache master get shocked while Jin elaborates that he's going to pay off this debt of theirs. All the elves begin to wonder why a human is doing this, and the soldiers let their captain know that the coins are real and there are 50,000 of them. This causes that soldier to question Jin the reason he's helping the elves and from where he got that much money from. Jin replies that he doesn't need a reason to help as he remains a hunter, no matter where he goes. He further adds that he has been saving this money for retirement, but buying a village with thick elves isn't the worst investment either. While that human begins to wonder what being a hunter means, one of his men recognizes Jin as the person who defeated Zerdoden earlier. In the end, he is forced to return to the kingdom, but before leaving, he lets Jin know that he isn't done with him yet. Following that, Lily calls out Jin's name, and he hands her over the receipt of the debt. But she lets him know that it's not possible for them to pay him back as they don't have enough money. When Jin reassures her that she doesn't need to pay him back, Lily questions how they are supposed to repay their debt to him, as he was considerate enough to hide his human form, and even did so much for them. After thinking a bit, Jin lets them know that he couldn't enjoy his dinner the night he left and was spacing out, thinking about them. Which is why he's only doing this for his own satisfaction, just so he can head back and enjoy his life with his family. Furthermore, he advises them to find new hunting grounds and trading routes to generate more wealth and use those coins for the betterment of the village. With tears in her eyes, Lily thanks Jin, saying that his kindness knows no bounds. Afterward, Jin mentions that the dinner is going to taste extra delicious now that this quest is done, and Eri invites him to stay the night and eat dinner with them instead. She then asks Lily if it's okay, to which she agrees, telling Jin that they want to treat him like a hero and hold a festival in his name. Later that day, while everyone enjoys dancing and celebrating, Jin is glad that it all worked out and remembers last night when Slirin and Ryu saw him in the storehouse, forcing himself to use all his savings and thinking that it might affect their food expenses. This resulted in the two of them appearing right behind him, letting Jin know that giving them less food is the one thing they won't forgive. This is the reason Jin has decided to work extra hard the moment he gets back. Elsewhere, in the Radonia Kingdom castle, the king freaks out after hearing that the story of a man defeating Zerdoden wasn't something the soldiers made up, and his assistant further adds that it's the same man who showed up at the village and paid off their entire debt. The king begins to panic as they rely on the threat of Zerdoden's existence to offer protection to the village and suck them dry to boost the kingdom's economy. Eventually, he orders his men to show the elf village and that man what happens when they go against the king. His assistant agrees, reassuring the king that their men are already headed there on some of their fastest horses. Meanwhile, fire erupts in the back of the village and starts spreading quickly. Eri tells Jin to escape, but he instantly refuses, saying that he's going to help put it out. Simultaneously, Lily tells everyone to pray to the water spirits, and with their combined efforts, they manage to use the water blessing. While Jin is surprised at first seeing them create water without a physical medium, he quickly finds out that it didn't work, and the fire hasn't subsided at all. This results in him wanting to help instead of admiring their skills, and asks Lily if there's a lake to the northeast. When Lily agrees, calling it the Okia Lake, Jin decides to head there as he'll be needing that water. With that being said, he leaves, telling Lily to trust him and evacuate everyone. As he's running towards the lake, Jin suddenly smells something that doesn't belong in the village and notices two knights on their horses running away. He doesn't waste any time running after them and manages to open one of the barrels they are carrying. As expected, oil starts flowing out of the barrel, causing Jin to question why they are running from the village, spilling oil everywhere. The knights freak out and decide to drop the barrel so that Jin wouldn't follow them anymore. Realizing that he has no other choice, Jin decides to head to the lake and believes that this much water should be enough. Jin then dives into the lake and figuring that the village is around 35 meters away, he begins changing the direction of the flow of water using his sword and manages to send a ton of it towards the village. Thanks to his efforts, it begins raining in the village, which puts out the fire, causing everyone to celebrate and Lily to wonder if Jin did this. He also gets relieved seeing that the smoke is disappearing, and before long, Eri arrives and informs Jin that the downpour puts the fire out and everyone is safe. She then notices the oil barrel on the ground and lets Jin know that an elf who was near the rear gates when the fire broke wants to talk to him. That boy elf then informs Jin that he saw two Redonia's soldiers on horses who were running around with torches despite it being the middle of the day. He believes that they are the ones who set the forest on fire, but as there is no proof, Redonia won't ever trust an elf's word. Jin reassures the elf that he trusts him and that he has proof. After that, he shows him the oil barrel on the ground, saying that this is what they were carrying, and even though he managed to catch one of the soldiers, they dropped the barrel and ran away. After hearing this statement, both the elf boys begin to question why they have to go through this, and Eri fails to control her tears as well. Jin also begins thinking that the knights laid their hands on something he was protecting and figures that they really don't know what hunters are. Afterward, he asks Eri which way is the Redonia kingdom, and when she questions if he plans to march in there alone, Jin tells her not to worry about him as fools like them deserve a little treatment from the belt. Following that, Eri shows him the way to Redonia kingdom, and lets him know that she came all the way because she's worried about letting him do this alone. She further warns him, saying that they are strong, well-equipped soldiers and even have a magic squad with powerful magicians. Jin reassures Eri that he'll keep it in mind and asks her if it's okay to use the boulder in front of them. Suddenly, he stabs it with his sword and ends up picking it up on his own. Meanwhile, a soldier comes running to the king, informing him that the hunter is attacking them on their own. The king mentions that Jin must be underestimating them and gets told by the soldier to at least take a look. After using the monocular, the king's soul nearly leaves his body when he sees a single man carrying a giant boulder all on his own. He can't believe how a human can lift something like that and orders his men to ready the defenses while he hides in the dungeon. Furthermore, he mentions that Jin can't scare them with such cheap performance, and his assistant reassures the king that their magic squad will handle everything. This reminds the king that they have the best magicians, and the assistant adds that they'll have them cast magic on their vanguard, creating an impenetrable wall. But Jin still tries to threaten them. He'll be met with hellfire. This ends up making the wimpy king confident, who is now sure that they will be burning both the village and the hunter today. Suddenly, one of his men appears, letting the king know that Jin is at the gate and is asking a question. Apparently, Jin wants to know if they are the ones who set the elf village on fire. However, the king doesn't take this seriously, saying that this won't save him and orders the archers to fire at him. As expected, Jin replies by throwing the boulder at the castle, breaking the walls and almost ripping the king's head off in the process. Jin then thanks them for the warm welcome, saying that the fire magic was quite a captivating show, but he wouldn't call it anything more than a party trick. Having no other choice, the king ends up surrendering and apologizes to Jin, asking if he wants money or a title. Jin questions if the king thinks he's in a position to beg and reminds him of how he treated the elves. Additionally, Jin lets him know that he disturbed the peace in the village he bought using his own money, and this is what happens when someone lays hands on a hunter's possession. For now, he decides to call it even, and when Eri mentions that he's quite destructive, Jin replies that he was holding back as the only thing he did was destroy their castle. After returning home, Lily asks Eri about the negotiations and gets told that they ended up using brute force. While she wonders if this is a problem, Jin notices the dragon's head on the table. He informs everyone that it's the same dragon he defeated and is glad that they managed to transport it to the village. Everyone gets surprised hearing this, and even Lily asks what he just said, causing Jin to wonder if it was some sacred species that should never be hunted for food. Afterward, the bookworm amongst the elves takes a good look at the dragon's head and announces that this is Zerdodin's head. Everyone begins celebrating hearing that the dragon is dead, while Jin begins to wonder if that tiny dragon really was the so-called massive dragon everyone was worried about. He starts feeling embarrassed about being worried about it and gets thanked by Lily, who mentions that the village will be able to live in peace from now on, and while it'll take some time, the forest's ecosystem will recover as well. Seeing this situation makes Jin think that all he did was run around and eliminate a bunch of monsters, which is similar to his usual quest, but as it made everyone else happy, he counts it as a good vacation. With that being said, Jin decides to go back to the hotties waiting for him at home, but gets interrupted by Eri, who lets him know that she has a request. After that, the village had a big farewell party, and he returned back with a return scroll, but this time, not empty-handed. When he returns home, the girls get excited and Slirin runs to greet him, only to stop midway and freak out, asking who that is. Apparently, Jin brought Eri along and lets the girls know that she will be living with them, adding the fact that she's from a faraway land, asking them to show Eri the ropes. Jin then introduces both Slirin and Ryu, but they don't seem very happy about this and ask Jin if that girl is his bride. Eri gets embarrassed and mentions that they haven't gone that far, while Jin reassures them that she just wanted to study a different culture, and that all they need to do is show her around. Still concerned, Slirin mentions that Eri is really pretty, and with a chest bigger than her head, she'll definitely steal Jin from them. She then wonders if they should just eat her, but gets told by Ryu that Jin will get mad at them. Suddenly, he appears right behind them, asking them if they are hungry and deciding to make some food for them. Eri suggests helping Jin out, as since she'll be staying there, she needs to learn about the house. Jin likes the idea and tells the girls that now, even when he's not home, they'll have someone who can make them food. This activates a neuron in their head, and they decide to let Eri live as long as she makes them food. Later that night, Eri manages to finish the elves' special curry rice, telling them that she called out to the spirits of this world and spiced it up with healthy magic. However, Jin can't quite figure out what in the world she did to turn the curry into a blue color. However, Slirin doesn't seem to care and decides to give it a taste. As soon as she takes a bite, Slirin sees a glimpse of God and falls onto the floor. While Ryu goes to get a potion, Eri begins apologizing for not making it good enough, but gets told by Jin that making mistakes is a part of learning. Meanwhile, Slirin is a bit upset, as even though everyone calls her a gluttonous ruler, there is something even she can't eat. The next day, Jin takes Eri out to show her the town, where she gets impressed seeing so many different races coexist together. Eri mentions that she never could have imagined that such a world existed, and Jin suggests stopping by the Hunters Guild, to which she agrees. However, at the Hunters Guild, a hunter is furious and keeps on asking the receptionist about the quest that Jin is on today, but she lets him know that such information is confidential. He gets annoyed and lets her know that because of Jin, hunters like him from neighboring towns are at their wits' end. Additionally, he believes that Jin is spreading false information about himself to steal jobs, such as him beating half the royal army or eating dragons for lunch every day. Because of this, he can't stand it and needs to teach him a lesson. Suddenly, Jin appears behind him, asking that hunter to calm down for a moment. Jin further adds that the receptionist manages all the hunters in this town, so he can't let him trouble her anymore. Not recognizing who Jin is, he gets annoyed and mocks Jin for being so laid back when all his jobs are being taken away. After that, he grabs Jin by his collar, and while the receptionist tries breaking the fight, that hunter prepares to land a punch on Jin. However, Jin easily manages to dodge that punch and kicks his legs, causing that hunter to fall and crash into the nearby supplies. The receptionist mentions that it was totally uncalled for, as he could have taken it outside, to which Jin replies that he had no time to think. Simultaneously, Eri appears and introduces herself to the receptionist, letting her know that she will be freeloading at Jin's house for the time being. Jin also mentions that Eri will be picking up quests, causing the receptionist to get excited and tell Eri to stop by any time. Additionally, she calls Jin a playboy for already keeping 2 girls at his house, but still having the need for more. Nonetheless, she lets him know that she has some commissions for him. After taking a look, Jin mentions that he'd like anything that's close by, and he can do solo. Meanwhile, that other hunter finally realizes that the person in front of him is Jin and thinks how he is playing him for a fool. Furthermore, he remembers that he is the neighboring town's top-class hunter named Boron, who came to give the rumored Jin a scare, as if they let him do as he pleases. The rest of the hunters will be stuck getting the same wage as a TikTok financial guru. For a hunter to make a name for themselves, they need to complete difficult or important quests, But lately, both nobles and common folk have been submitting requests specifically for Jin, and as a result, there's nothing left for the others. Realizing that Jin is way too quick in completing quests, Boron figures that Jin must be using hacks, which is why he needs to beat him up and force Jin to disclose all his dirty tricks. Meanwhile, Jin agrees to take an easy S-rank quest for now and asks Eri to go home alone, to which she agrees, wishing him good luck for his quest. Simultaneously, the receptionist notices that Boron has left, which frustrates Jin as he didn't even clean up after himself. Elsewhere, Eri is on her way home and is getting stalked by Boron, who remembers that she lives with Jin along with 2 other girls. As Jin left for an S-rank quest, Boron figures that he won't be back for a while, which is why this is a perfect chance for him. Boron doesn't care if this is something underhanded, as all he needs to do is take those girls hostage and beat Jin into submission when he's unable to do anything. With that being said, he appears on the backside of the house, calling Eri dumb for leaving the back door open. Suddenly, Ryu opens that door, slamming it on Boron's face and later asking who he is. He shamelessly introduces himself as Jin's friend, and to his surprise, Ryu instantly falls for his lies and ends up inviting him inside to wait for Jin's return. Now that the infiltration is successful, Boron notices that Ryu is a demi-human, and as demi-humans are tough to deal with when they resist, he decides to strangle her unconscious. Suddenly, a loud growling noise alerts the 2 of them, followed by Slirin's appearance, who lets Ryu know that she's really hungry. Boron is relieved after finding out that she's pretty young and decides to take them both out at once. Meanwhile, Ryu tells Slirin to eat Eri's cooking if she's hungry, to which Slirin replies that she can't eat that which is pissing her off. Seeing the slime all around her freaks Boron out, and he decides not to take her lightly. Whereas Ryu mocks Slirin for always acting cute in front of Jin, saying that she'll show him the real her this time. Slirin questions if she can really do that and decides to just end Ryu's life, causing both of them to get in their fighting positions. Surrounded by slime and flames, Boron begins to regret his decision, wondering what he got himself into. While the 2 of them continue fighting each other, Boron gives up and runs away, asking for help. Ryu mentions that it was Jin's friend, and they both realize that Jin's would be really angry if they scare his friend away. To prevent this, both of them start running after him. At this point, Boron realizes that this is a monster house, and that he shouldn't have involved himself with such a freak. On the other hand, Eri is busy cooking another one of her monstrous dishes and is sure that it'll be good this time. Once again, she made the elven curry rice and is sure that it has no flaws compared to the first one. Simultaneously, Boron struggles to find the exit and runs into the kitchen, only to bump into Eri, who has the curry pot in her hands. Realizing that the noise came from the kitchen, both of them hurried to the kitchen, only to find Eri on the ground along with Boron, who's fully covered in the curry she made. Slirin asks if he's okay, and realizing that he's a guest, Eri begins freaking out. Just as the others are starting to panic, Boron gets up and asks about the exit, as all he wants is to get out of the house alive. Additionally, he questions what this gooey, spicy thing is and notices his vision warping, along with a growing difficulty to breathe. Believing that he might be poisoned, Boron runs towards the exit, causing all 3 girls to rush after him in order to stop him from going outside. Seeing 3 terrifying creatures after him, Boron tries his best to escape, and coincidentally, Jin returns home at the same time. With a glimpse of hope, Boron begs Jin to save him, making Jin question if this is a new kind of monster. The girls let him know that it's his friend, but not remembering being friends with a curry monster, he decides to hand him in to the guild for now. Later that day, Jin suggests going on a quest together with Eri and proposes starting with a simple D-rank job. Slirin manages to find a job exterminating orcs, and when asked the reason, she mentions that they are pretty nice and crunchy. Meanwhile, Ryu also finds a job collecting herbs at the mountain top, saying that the open sky is heaven for a dragon, but gets denied by Jin. Lastly, Eri shows him 2 F-rank jobs she found, and realizing that both of them are close by, he agrees to take them. Afterward, Eri notices the missing section on the board and asks Jin about it, who lets her know that it's for all the hunters who went missing after taking a quest and haven't returned within a given amount of time. He further mentions that one would be lucky to find them alive, and quests like these are basically them looking for the missing person's corpses. Eri freaks out hearing the word corpses and figures that she'll die if she makes a mistake, but gets reassured by Jin that with Ryu and Slirin supporting, she's got nothing to worry about. After Eri's all geared up and has gathered all the necessary supplies, she mentions that she's ready for her first quest. But to her surprise, they easily manage to complete both the F-rank quests, and when Eri comments on how she was expecting this to take longer, Ryu replies that F-rank quests are a walk in the park. Afterward, the two monster girls mention how they like this place as it's pretty nice and the ground is also damp. Meanwhile, Eri is glad that they finished the quest safely and simultaneously. Jin returns with some firewood and gets surprised seeing his monster babes fast asleep. He then suggests making lunch while the others are asleep and decides to catch some more pigs as they only needed 3 for the quest. Suddenly, all the pigs start squeaking, and at the same time, Jin and Eri notice a lot of dust in the air, making them believe that something is headed this way. Just then, an S-rank monster named the Black Flame Ox appears in front of them. As expected, Eri wets her pants, seeing that it's even bigger than Zerdudin, but gets told by Jin that she's in luck as these guys are pretty tasty. Slirin also wakes up and gets excited after seeing the ox, saying that they will be having a feast tonight. But just as Jin is about to attack, he notices some arrows sticking to the ox's peaches and notices a group of hunters running after it, trying their best not to let it escape. Sadly, he has to give up as it's already taken. Eri then notices that they are the same people who were on the missing hunter poster, and Jin figures that they took too long trying to hunt the Black Flame Ox. But at the same time, she's glad that they are safe, and Jin adds that they are barely standing, and if things stay the same, they won't be able to take it down. He further says that they should go home if they're out of potions, as being stubborn won't do any good. Suddenly, one of those hunters tells her party members to look in that direction, and they instantly recognize Jin as the hunter who destroyed the Royal Capital's guild. Meanwhile, Eri asks if he isn't going to help them, to which he replies that even if he wants to, he can't because of the hunter code. Seeing Eri look confused, Slirin steps up and explains that the code is to never lay hands on a hunter's pretty, which is so well known that even kids know about it. She adds that no one likes a thieving rascal who takes what isn't theirs, and Eri agrees. Moreover, Jin says that he can't lay a hand on the ox until they give up on the quest, but they still seem to have that spark in them and are not even close to giving up. While he tries motivating them, they start roasting him for staring at them, saying that everyone knows about his wrongdoings and reminding him that ox is their prey. While Jin gets depressed, Slirin and Ryu mention how the smallest dogs bark the loudest. Suddenly, the ox lifts its mouth above, freaking the hunters out. Furthermore, its mouth begins to shine, and Jin instantly realizes that it's about to unleash its flame breath. Simultaneously, Slirin prepares to defend everyone by eating all that fire, and just as the ox throws flames from its mouth, Slirin uses a shadow shield to protect everyone and manages to devour all the flames thrown towards them. Eri gets shocked seeing something the wimpy elves can only dream of doing, later realizing that Slirin seems to be enjoying it quite a lot and wants the ox to feed her even more. Jin mentions that Slirin is doing good and wonders about the other hunters, to which Ryu replies that they are blocking it as well, but their shield won't hold on for that long. Meanwhile, those hunters realize that they are not ready for S-rank quests and figure that it's time to watch the ending credits. Eri begins to panic as well, and Jin mentions that knowing your limits and when to retreat is a vital skill for any hunter. But unfortunately, those hunters seem to be lacking this skill. Seeing the flames reminds Eri of the elves who turned into rare steak by the village fire and end up requesting the water spirits to lend her their powers. She then dashes towards the fire, completely ignoring Slirin's warning to not step outside her shield. But she continues running, believing that she won't lay a hand on their prey, as her powers wouldn't even be able to scratch it in the first place. After getting behind the 4 of them, Eri lets them know that she will protect them with her water magic and make another water shield on top of their physical one. But at the same time, she lets them know that they need to think of something as she can't hold it off for long. The hunters begin to panic, wondering what they should do, when suddenly, Jin begins walking towards them with a pose that screams "Or a farmer," and asks if he can have that walking hunk of meat as he's really hungry. This comes as a surprise to those hunters, and they begin finding the quest paper. Meanwhile, Ryu mentions that the flame breath is finally over, but Slirin is aware that the next attack will be even stronger. As expected, the ox then starts charging towards them at full speed, and that hunter, who managed to find the quest papers, begs Jin to help them out, allowing him to have the ox. Seeing them hand over the quest surprises both Eri along with Slirin and Ryu, while Jin mentions that even though it took them long enough, that's all he needs. Now that their black flame ox is now his, Jin jumps towards the ox that's dashing towards the hunters, and with a single strike to its throat, he manages to bring it down, surprising those hunters who can't believe that one strike is all that it took. Both Slirin and Ryu give him a hug for securing the meat, while Eri also seems glad that the quest is now complete. Following that, Ryu doesn't waste any time carving it up, and Slirin decides to store it away inside herself right away, while she uses her internal storage skill to secure the meat. Ryu mentions that those hunters ran away without even thanking Jin, to which he replies that at least one of them was sorry, which is more than enough. He further adds that making mistakes is how novice hunters grow, and Slirin mentions that Eri went a bit overboard as well. Ryu comments that she thought Eri was crazy when she ran out, but Slirin argues that she still managed to hold back the flames. She also calls Jin a softie for not helping out even though he had his sword out and everything, saying that the same goes for Eri, as she even gave those hunters her potions without leaving any for herself. However, Jin believes that it was due to Eri's selfishness that blew away their hostility and let them ask for his help. Back at the guild, they deliver everything that was asked to collect in the F-rank quest, and Eri gets complimented by the receptionist for doing a good job. But she isn't so sure herself if she was good enough, as all she did was rely on others the entire time. Slirin laughs, deciding to forgive Eri once, and points towards the receptionist, who is shocked to see that Jin managed to take down the Black Flame Ox while he was completing the other quests. As they got the meat thanks to Eri, the two girls promise to overlook her antics. Afterward, the receptionist lets Jin know that the guild master wants to talk to him, and after telling the girls to go on ahead without him, Jin asks Eri if she's alright, to which she agrees, saying that she recovered with a potion she had. Later that day, Jin meets up with the buffed guild master named Tarman, who happily greets Jin, and when asked if he always trains hard with those weights, Tarman mentions that one got to work them muscles after all the paperwork. With that being said, Tarman decides to cut to the chase and informs Jin that they have received a special rank quest for him. However, Jin doesn't seem so happy to receive one, as they involve never-before-seen monsters and national security concerns, which can be quite troublesome. Tarman questions if he's not interested, and when Jin agrees, Tarman lets him know that he has already stepped foot into this mystery. Afterward, he returns home and apologizes for taking so long, since that steroid addict sure talks a lot. Eri then mentions that tonight's dinner is especially fancy, and Jin agrees, telling everyone that today is a celebration for Eri and her first successful quest. While the others waste no time digging into the meat, Jin begins drinking and remembers his conversation with Tarman, who asks Jin about his retirement savings. Hesitant, Jin told him that he kind of made a big purchase recently, causing Tarman to advise Jin to save up, as one thing that he can't battle is old age. Jin agrees, saying that he notices his hairline receding day by day and wonders how long he can stay working as a hunter. This is the reason he has decided to keep working while he's fresh, so he can protect these carefree days with everyone. Tarman then gets up, saying that Jin is now more mature than he used to be, and gets told that this is what happens with age. Nonetheless, Tarman suggests getting back to the topic and asks if Jin knows about the magical dragon Zerdotin, adding to the fact that he heard Jin was looking it up in their library. He further mentions that Zerdotin's name comes up in a certain old manuscript of the kingdom, and reassures him that he's not going to pry about how Jin learned that name and won't report it to the king either. Still, if Jin is already involved with the Great Tome, Tarman believes that he should at least hear what the quest is. With that being said, he informs that mysterious large holes have popped up all over the kingdom, and the king is desperate to find out what's going on with these pits. Jin figures that they want to dump it on them and wonders if the hole he fell into is one of the mysterious holes. At the same time, he's aware that if the kingdom already knows of the holes, then the natural next step for their greedy king would be to invade that world on the other side. Back in the present, Jin tells everyone that they need to talk, as Tarman told him about a new quest, but he is not sure what to do, as it's unlike anything they have done before. Earlier, he asked Tarman to give him more details about that quest, and was told that this special ranked quest involves more than just investigation. Apparently, there are currently 5 holes that showed up, and the kingdom already sent a lot of hunters, but the results are grim. Jin realizes that they didn't come back and probably weren't able to use the return scrolls. Tarman further adds that the investigation is just a front, and the king wants the hunters to eliminate the other side because of the Great Tome prophecy. Seeing the confused look on Jin's face, Tarman explains that it's a highly classified book of prophecies that the kingdom has been trying to fully decipher for many years. According to the book, 7 holes will open in the world with monsters known as 7 deadly sins lying dormant in each. The sins are the guardians of the rifts between worlds, and thanks to them, the holes don't merge with their world. One of these sins is the dragon of greed called Zerdotin. while Jin thinks that the midget-sized dragon didn't seem powerful enough to be able to move between worlds. Tarmin says that the king is afraid because of the prophecy's last verse that if the 7 sins are not defeated, the world will be brought to ruin. Jin realizes that the scale of this quest is way too huge and how this is a lot to handle for him. Nonetheless, Tarmin tells him to at least see the reward, and after taking a look, Jin's soul leaves his body as he can't believe that he'll receive 50,000 gold coins up front, and every time he investigates a hole, he'll get an extra 100,000. Knowing that he can fully recover the gold he spent and rack up a huge profit, Jin's greediness starts taking over. But he reminds himself that he didn't help the elves because he was expecting such a reward and decides to just think of it as justified compensation for his everyday efforts. Tarmin begins to worry as he has never seen Jin so excited. Eventually, Jin decides to accept the reward and tells Tarmin that he needs to come clean, later informing him that he already defeated Zerdodin. As expected, Tarmin is impressed knowing that Jin already managed to hunt down one of the sins and starts writing the report. Jin also adds that he found a peaceful village of elves at the bottom of the hole and tells Tarmin that he doesn't want any soldiers marching in there. He happened to have helped out that village and wants Tarmin to tell the king that it's under his protection. Tarmin agrees, saying that he's sure the king wouldn't dare lay hands on his property. Before long, they are done with the report and Tarmin mentions how this really helps move the investigation forward. Following that, he asks Jin if he plans to explore the other holes too. But Jin is sure that with this much money, he can make do with ordinary quests for the rest of his life. Rather than getting caught up in all that nonsense, he believes that it's safer to go back doing the same quests. Tarmin replies that as a guild master, he couldn't be happier about him clearing out the town's request and asks if that's really what Jin wants. He further adds that Jin has already proven that the return scrolls work once the sin of the hole is defeated, and now the kingdom will throw even more money, causing more hunters to rush into the holes. But they all will perish as they aren't as strong as Jin, and Tarmin believes that a hunter like Jin should be getting all the riches, fame and praise, and that he needs to be greedier for everyone's sake. Jin replies by telling Tarmin that he's really trying to rile him up today, and with that being said, he eventually decides to go. Back at the house, the girls also agree to go and begin wondering what the other sins taste like. When Jin asks Eri, she mentions that even though it seems dangerous, there might be others struggling just like the elves, and she would love to go and help them. The next morning, all 4 of them arrive at the base of Ragna Mountain and take a look at the other hole, and after holding each other's hand, they all jump into that hole together. Following that, the 4 of them find themselves falling down from the sky. Just then, Ryu goes ahead and transforms herself into a dragon, allowing everyone to ride on her back safely. Eri questions if this is her true form, to which she replies that her actual body is much bigger. Meanwhile, Jin also praises Ryu for saving their lives, as he didn't think they'd emerge so high in the sky. Both Slirin and Eri begin to mention how hot it is, causing Ryu to comment that the whole ground is covered in lava. Jin wonders how they are supposed to get info on the sin, as he doesn't see a single creature down there, while Eri adds that this world is filled with tons of mana. This causes Jin to wonder if mana is what she needs to perform magic. Just then, Ryu interrupts, informing Jin that there is a spot of greenery beyond the lava. Figuring out that there must be people there, he tells Ryu to land for some water and start their search. But as soon as they land on the ground, Slirin starts complaining about how it's even hotter on the ground, and Ryu mentions that she's quite hungry after all that flying. When Jin asks Eri if she's okay, she agrees, saying that she's not good with the heat, but something mysterious is giving her strength, which must be the mana. After roaming around for a while, Jin notices that he can hear a stream close by, and after following that direction, they end up discovering a huge spring which is in the middle of a barren land and contains cold water. Additionally, Jin notices an old building nearby and wonders if it's some sort of ruin. However, Ryu mentions that it looks like a shrine to her, and a well-maintained one. Suddenly, a group of people arrived, armed with weapons, and surrounded Jin, asking who he was and where he came from. One of them, pointy ear baddies, asks Jin if he's a minion of Yon the demon, saying that she will not let him lay a hand on their sacred land. But before he can even reply, they ask him to put his hands up and get on his knees, warning him not to do anything rash, or he's good as dead. Noticing their blue eyes and beautiful fins, Jin realizes that they must be water spirits, and the spring must be important to them. Nonetheless, he reassures them that they are not enemies, but before he even gets the chance to finish, both Ryu and Slirin use their powers and grab those people. Slirin doesn't go easy and begins choking that girl, causing her to struggle. However, when Jin tells them to stop as they can't just attack the native people, they both remind him that they are the ones who attacked them first, and besides, they are pretty hungry. Meanwhile, those men start mocking the girls for taking Raphine hostage, calling them cowards. Jin tries his best to make them understand that this is a misunderstanding when suddenly, another person appears, telling everyone to calm down. That person turns out to be Makaro, the chief of their village, and the father of that girl Slirin is choking. He mentions that Jin and the others don't seem to be a race from these lands and questions the purpose they have stepped foot here. Jin replies that they just came to get some water during their travels and are not looking to pick a fight. Furthermore, he asks Slirin to let Raphine go, asking Ryu to do the same. Makaro replies that they are a proud tribe of Undines and currently, they are preparing for a battle to protect this land. He further adds that if they claim to have not heard of Yon the demon, they should leave this place while they can, as the battlefield won't be so kind to them. While Jin gets a bit flustered hearing about the battle, all three of his chicks also seem to be pumped over this upcoming battle. When the Undines start to question why they are so excited, Jin introduces himself, saying that he's a hunter from a faraway kingdom of Rural, but as expected, Makaro has never heard of such a kingdom. Jin then informs him that he has only one objective. That is to defeat one of the 7 sins that will bring disaster to these lands, and figures that the demon they are talking about is likely the being they are planning to defeat. When he suggests joining forces, the Undines begin to hesitate, causing Eri to comment on how they don't seem to trust him at all. But Jin can't blame them, as the 4 of them showed up out of nowhere and started thinking how he should approach this matter. Makaro replies by first thanking Jin for the offer, and lets him know that this is a problem for Undines and the other races of this land, which is why he cannot let outsiders get involved. Makaro further asks if they even have the power to defeat Yon the demon, causing Jin to wonder how he should get them to trust him. Eventually, he proposes having a duel, and after handing his spear to Raphine, Makaro extends his hand, causing both of them to shake hands. While Eri is glad to see this, both the others can see that this isn't a friendly handshake at all. Following that, Makaro tightens his grip and begins judging Jin's strength without crossing blades, and after realizing what Makaro is after, Jin starts tightening his grip as well. As expected, Makaro realizes that Jin's grip speaks for itself and figures that he must have swung his sword countless times, as it's the hand any swordsman wishes to have. Not only that, but Jin manages to remain calm despite his bloodlust, which makes Makaro wonder how many times Jin has been on the brink of death. To everyone's surprise, Makaro then gets on his knees and asks Jin to lend them his strength, to which he instantly agrees. After ordering everyone to lower their spears, he takes everyone to their town, which Eri finds really pretty. But Raphine mentions that this place has completely dried out and informs them that she'll take them to the main state. Additionally, she apologizes for earlier, to which Jin replies that they showed up out of nowhere and it's only natural as they are prepared for battle. Just then, both the girls grab onto Raphine, introducing themselves. Raphine then mentions that she has experienced firsthand how strong they are and begs Jin to help their town. At the chief's house, the girls start complaining how thirsty and hungry they are, and luckily, Makaro brings them some ice-cold water, informing them that this place used to be brimming with water. But one day, a disaster struck their town when Yon the demon appeared before the salamander race, and their peace ended. When Jin asks if salamanders are spirits of fire, Makaro agrees, saying that there used to be 4 races, which included the Undines, the salamanders, the air spirit called sylphs, and the earth spirit called the gnomes. For generations, they used to live with unity, but suddenly, Yon the demon showed up before the salamanders and with a powerful spell, covered the land with lava and urged the salamanders to eliminate the other races. Due to this, the salamanders destroyed their sacred water shrine, and now there's almost no water coming out of it. After that, the 3 remaining spiritual races joined forces to eliminate Yon, but even though they broke through the Fire Town's defenses and were able to reach Yon's castle, it was completely surrounded by giant flame golems, and all 3 races were utterly demolished. While they were able to escape without casualties, the gnomes had their equipment melted and the sylphs' magic was ineffective, which forced them to leave the elimination force and flee. While it was a tough decision, Makaro believes that it was the best chance they had to keep their races alive. When Jin asks the reason, he didn't flee. Makaro replies that they are water spirits, and without a water source like the shrine, they can't move anywhere. This makes Jin realize that the situation is worse than he thought, and gets interrupted by Slirin, who mentions that she's really thirsty. Makaro decides to bring some more, but Jin asks him not to and tells Slirin to bear it a bit longer. However, she mentions that her throat is drier than your DM's and reminds him that slimes are mostly made of water. Luckily, Eri lets her know that she can conjure her some water and can make her as much water as she needs with water blessing. But Jin tells her to stop and asks if she's sure she can tell the Undines about her magic, to which she replies that it's okay as she wants to help out. With that being said, she offers to make water for the townspeople as well, and after receiving permission from Jin, she uses the water blessing. But to their surprise, the amount of water turns out to be unexpectedly high, causing her to drown the father-daughter duo as well as Jin. The chief's house starts looking like a 3M piss session, while Eri can't seem to understand why the water isn't stopping. Luckily, Slyrin manages to chug all the water, and after they are done cleaning up, they notice Mikaro lying on the floor, shocked. Jin questions if he's okay and Eri starts apologizing, but all he says is Goddess of Water, confusing the two of them. Afterward, he gets up and grabs Eri's hand, saying that the Goddess of Water has come to their rescue. Mikaro further says that there's no mistaking it, as she's the only one who could conjure so much water with a simple prayer, and currently, they are witnessing the descent of the water goddess. However, Eri tries her best to tell him that it's a misunderstanding, and all he did was mess up her spell. But Mikaro doesn't back down and mentions that if the salamanders had their god descend upon them, that it's natural that the water goddess would descend upon the Undies. He then asks Raphine if she thinks of it as a miracle as well, to which she agrees, adding the fact that Eri seems a bit too chill for a goddess. Just when Eri begins to wonder what they should do, Jin steps up and tells Eri that her identity is now exposed, and they have no choice but to save these people. He then compliments Mikaro for his keen eye, saying that Eri truly is the water goddess who chose to grace them with her presence out of concern. At this point, both the father-daughter duo accepted this as the real goddess, and when Eri tries asking what he's doing, Jin replies by giving her a thumbs up. Afterward, Mikaro makes Eri sit on the throne and announces that the water goddess has descended upon them. As expected, all the townsfolk start going crazy, thinking that she will save them from the evil clutches of Yon. Meanwhile, Jin mentions that he figures playing along, and having them think Eri is a goddess would make it much easier for them to subjugate the demon. Mikaro then introduces these three as the attendants of Eri, pissing them off for not only losing to Eri in the chess department, but also receiving a lower status. Afterward, she calls Jin, and he makes sure to keep this act of her servant. Eri asks what he plans to do if they realize that he lied to their faces, and lets him know that the flood wasn't due to her own powers. It happened because of the extreme concentration of mana in this world, which made her magic go rampant. However, Jin finds it incredible, as this means she can be a powerful mage while they're in this world. But when she argues that it's out of her control, Jin calls it a trivial matter, as they will defeat Yon the demon and use her magic to help this town. Lastly, he advises Eri not to pretend to be a goddess and really become one instead. Not wanting to betray their hopes, Eri agrees to help the town until he has defeated Yon the demon. Afterward, Mikaro asks Eri if she can be an oracle for their people, and when she agrees, the oldest Undine she has ever laid her eyes upon steps up and gets advised by Eri to take good care of his health. Ryu begins to think that being a goddess sounds like a pain, to which Jin agrees. Just then, Slyrin mentions that she can smell something tasty, and Jin also mentions that it has a rich aroma of thoroughly cooked seafood. Raphine then appears, asking the three of them to have some food while they wait. Following that, a 3-star chief appears as well, reassuring them that their village is second to none when it comes to food. He then reveals all the dishes, which look transparent and are called the wet water cuisine. Without wasting any time, Ryu begins slurping those noodles, and Slyrin makes sure to devour all the meat buns, while Jin comments that he can never make something this good back at home. After finishing their portions, they mention how good it is and notice Eri staring at them, causing Jin to reassure her that they'll save some for her. The next morning, the three of them are waiting for Eri's arrival, and Jin mentions that she should be here with Mikaro and the others at any moment. Before long, Eri appears sitting in the palanquin, shaking like an old washing machine. Ultimately, they put the palanquin down and Eri steps out, still dizzy from the ride. Both the girls comment on how that was a rough treatment for a goddess, while Eri suggests proceeding with the ceremony. Afterward, Mikaro shows Eri the shrine where an endless stream of water used to gush forth. But the salamanders destroyed it, and now the blessed water has almost stopped. Eri figures that there used to be a magic circle there, and that it should be able to continuously summon water by combining the earth's energy with mana. But as part of the building was destroyed, the circulation of energy has been disrupted, but if they can restore the cycle, the water will start flowing again. Hearing this makes all the Undines excited. Meanwhile, Eri asks Makaro to raise the pillars and the priests to recite the incantations. Additionally, she asks Jin and the others to take it easy, to which they agree and let her know that she's pretty reliable, causing her to blush. She then remembers how she got to hear the feelings of everyone, and with the lava closing in on them, she'd like to solve their water problem. At the same time, she doesn't want to ride that palanquin again, which is why she's motivated to finish this quickly. With that being said, she begins praying and filling the magic circle with mana. Seeing her pray makes Makaro tell everyone to cheer for Eri, and they all begin shouting and dancing, reassuring her that they'll keep supporting her with their ancestral dance. Terrified of their performance, Eri decides to finish this quickly, and seeing everything that has been happening, Slirin mentions that she's glad she wasn't chosen to be the goddess. Before long, Jin appears, and when Ryu asks if Eri is okay, he agrees and mentions that once the people have their water, they need to defeat the sin, and for that, they need information on the demon. Suddenly, he notices a fisherman nearby and decides to go and check them out. Following that, he calls out to her, letting her know that this place might get flooded soon, to which she replies, asking him to let her stay for a bit longer. He then notices the fish she caught, and when that person asks who Jin is, he introduces himself as an ordinary old guy, letting her know that he isn't an Undine as they have fins for ears. Jin then figures that she must not be an Undine, to which she agrees, saying that she just came to check them out, to see what all the fighting's been about. She further mentions that the lava will swallow this place soon, and if all the Undines die, she won't get to see them anymore, so she wanted to do it while she can. This makes Jin question if she's a salamander, but she disagrees, telling Jin that he's pretty close. He further adds that the Undines won't die as he will take down Yon the demon himself. Furthermore, he reassures her that she can come and hang out again when the battle is over. Just then, he notices the water level rising and realizes that the shrine has been restored. That girl also starts walking away, letting Jin know that he can't defeat Yon the demon as he's just an average old guy. After coming back, Ryu asks about that person and Jin replies that she was one of the salamanders. When she questions why he let her go, Jin replies that it was just a young girl and that the salamanders are also victims of Yon's manipulation. On the other hand, Eri is tired after restoring the shrine and is thanked by all the townsfolk. Both Slirin and Ryu also praise her, while Makaron suggests having another grand festival to celebrate, but she's a bit too tired to go through any of this again and ends up losing her consciousness. Later that day, Makaro asks if the water goddess is going to be okay, and Jin lets her know that she's tired after using a lot of water and is currently resting in the estate as they speak. Afterward, he suggests coming back to the topic and asks Makaro about the route they took the first time they tried attacking Yon. Makaro mentions that they had to take a detour because of the lava, which drained their resources and stamina. With that being said, Jin asks to borrow one of Makaro's people who knows the surroundings well, and when he asks the reason, Jin replies that he's going to subjugate Yon the demon tomorrow. Jin further adds that Yon is a highly intelligent monster who's currently covering the world with lava to create a battlefield where he cannot lose. Additionally, Jin is sure that he's also sending spies to see if any of them are planning a surprise attack. Shocked, Makaro questions if Yon is spying on them, and Jin agrees, telling him that before the spies return and the place is swallowed by lava, he needs to defeat Yon. Do you think that Fisher Girl is actually Yon the demon who came to spy on them? Comment Hunter if you'd like a part 2 of this series. As usual, thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next one.